Hey everyone, today I'm going to be working on another page in my Around the World Chipboard journal. And I'm going to be creating the background using the papers from the 49 & Market Hike More 6x8 collection pack. Now these papers are all double-sided, so I'm just going to be cutting them up into smaller rectangles and squares and sorting them out by color. Now I didn't pre-plan the layout of my background, so I'm just going to be working very naturally, moving from square to square and dividing up the color so that there's a smattering of the color all over in the background. I'm gluing all these papers down with Distress Collage Medium and a Distress Collage Medium brush by putting a nice even layer on the background, placing down my paper choice, and then applying another layer over the top of each paper. And by doing this, I'm making sure that the papers are completely sealed, so any product that I would layer later on in the project will not seep into and damage any of these papers. They're going to remain pristine, and if I get color where I don't want it, I'll be able to wipe it up because that glue is there and sealing the papers. So as I said before, I'm just working on applying all of these papers very randomly. I did take time to sort them out into color categories, so that does make it a little bit easier when I'm creating my collage mosaic background. And now I have all of the papers placed down and the entire background covered, and I'm looking through my loose sheets of dictionary paper. And it just so happened that one of the images in these dictionary sheets happened to be a vine leaf image, and I thought that was really cool and went well with the theme of what I was doing. So I carefully tore around that image, and then I'm also tearing smaller pieces of dictionary paper and placing them randomly in the background. And after I gave this a chance to dry, I'm now going in with Distress Resist spray, and I've taken the cover off and I'm just tapping the spray nozzle so that I get tiny drips and drops. If I had sprayed, I would obviously get a really large spray pattern, and that's not what I wanted. I am taking care to apply a little bit extra of this resist spray over the images, such as the dictionary leaves and this little fox, so those will be protected and any product I apply later will resist it. These layers need to be 100% dry before you begin working on this next layer. So I have placed down some Distress Oxide pads onto my craft sheet in the colors of Speckled Egg and Salvage Patina, and I'm misting them lightly with water and then placing my chipboard page directly into those oxides. And as I lift it, I'm letting it run and move and create a very organic coverage. Now, if you get too much in any one area, you can just very lightly dab it up with a paper towel and then leave this alone to dry. While everything is drying, I'm going to use a Carabelle Studio stamp called Hidden Leaf, and I'm just going to stamp this in archival ink on some of those loose pieces of paper that I had left over from my background. And I'm taking care to stamp these all on areas that have green printing on them, as I wanted my leaves to end up being green. Now that everything in the background of my page is dry, I'm going to use a large paper file along the edge to trim away any extra papers, and this paper file will give me a nice clean edge all the way around. I'm also going to use the large round precision file to do the exact same thing in punching out the holes for the book when I'm later going to bind it together. And in using those, I get a nice even cut all the way around my book, and I can keep collaging. The Hike More 6x8 collection pack also comes with several sheets of laser cut embellishments, and I've just taken care to punch several of those items out of the sheets, and now I'm going to lay them out and decide how I want them to be collaged together. So before I begin gluing anything, I oftentimes will take a bunch of the pieces that I want to include and lay them out and decide on the spacing, if I need more elements, if I want to edit and remove some of those from my design. And this helps me as I'm layering decide what I need and what I do not need. After playing around with these elements for a few minutes, I am ready to start gluing everything down with Distress Collage Medium. So I'm going to apply a little bit of glue onto the back of the frame and then place my fern die cut into place. And in doing so, it's going to allow me to layer in the air so that I can have all these elements stacked up without having to just commit and then the placement is wrong. So I'm doing this a little bit different than I typically would because all of these elements are so dainty. So I'm just placing glue exactly where I need it and then putting each element into place. And in doing so, again, I'm going to have everything lined up exactly how I want. So I'm putting a little bit more glue on the back of the frame and then picking up the second stamped leaf that I made earlier. And now I'm ready to glue down this frame completely. I have everything exactly how I want it to be lined up. So I'm just going to put the glue on the back and press it down onto my page. And now I can keep layering on top of everything. So I want to include some textures in this background. So I'm using Distress Resist Spray again, using the spray nozzle to place it exactly where I want. And now I have a small baggie of Finnabar art stones. I'm only going to be using the mini art stones for this, but this baggie actually has a mixture of both the regular art stones and the mini art stones. I'm just using my finger to grab only the mini size and then place them directly on top of the resist spray that we spread out earlier. And then I'm going to let that dry 100%. And the resist spray is going to grab those stones and they will be there permanently when they're dry. And now I can start layering once again on top of those art stones and the rest of the papers we glued down earlier. So I'm going to work by putting down my smaller mushrooms using the fine detailer precision tip of the Distress Collage Medium bottle. This is really nice when you're doing tiny little detailed work because that precision tip lets you apply the glue exactly where you want it without a bunch of excess or waste. And now I'm ready to put down the larger mushroom in the collage. This is a really great example of I'm just putting a little bit of the collage medium directly in the center of the embellishment, and when I press it down on my page, that glue is going to ooze out and cover the entire piece and hold it in place permanently. And this is allowing me to put the glue on with the bottle, but not allowing that glue so excessively to be applied that it oozes everywhere and makes a huge mess. Now I'm going to put down some little critters now that I have the main portion of the collage done. So I'm going to have a little caterpillar and a tiny dragonfly landing on the frame. And now I'm working more so for accent pieces to enhance my original collage, which is the fern and those mushrooms. And then the final pieces are going to be two little butterflies, one in blue and one in a dark green. As I'm putting in these final elements, I'm evaluating after I place every single one to say, when should I stop? Just because I punched all these elements out doesn't mean that I have to use them all the way to the end. So after I place each one, I say, does it need more? And then I glue it in place if I feel it does. So I've scribbled down a distress crayon in gathered twigs onto my craft sheet and a little bit of water. And I'm going to use my paintbrush, a wet paintbrush, to pick up that distress crayon directly off my craft sheet and place it down onto my page. Now I'm going to be putting this down in a few places to add some shadow and depth to the background and also add some shadowing around my collage elements. So around the frame, around underneath things like underneath the mushrooms, underneath the ferns, and then I'm going to smudge it out with my finger so that I soften it and blend that out a little bit. I'm also going to apply some over the art stones because the art stones will absorb color as well. In areas where I want even more shadowing and even more depth, I'm going to take the distress crayon, again in the same color of gathered twigs, and apply it directly onto my page and then smudge it out with my finger. Now because I glued all these papers down with Distress Collage Medium, this crayon is going to move really great on top of that Distress Collage Medium. In doing this technique, if you apply it and you think, whoa, too much, that's too dark, you always can go back in with your wet paintbrush or get some water on your finger and then smudge it out further and lighten that color. So this is a technique where you're going to apply, smudge it out, and then sometimes even go back in and remove and work until you get the layers and depth that you want. So in this case, I'm going in with my finger and smudging it out, and then using my towel to absorb some of that so that I don't have so much coverage. And I'm going to keep doing this until I'm happy with the final result. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're more inspired to create your own forest theme pages, and I'd love to see them, so share with us on social media using hashtag ArtJournalJunction. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any of our future videos and mixed media projects.